G'day guys, Zook here. Welcome back to another video. I'm here joined with Ray, who is my Rosenberg monitor. So if I'm talking throughout the video and he starts hissing, just ignore that. Just want to showcase how he's doing with his handling. And so far he's been a very cheeky bugger. Trying to do a couple of takes already, and he's kind of ruined him in a way, haven't you, buddy? Can we behave for the next 10 minutes? Yeah? I'll take that as a no. But anyway guys, in today's video we are looking at some of the things that first time reptile owners don't realise. Or those who are new to reptile keeping, these are some of the things you may need to know before getting your first reptile to make sure you guys know what you're doing, as well you don't get in trouble. So the first thing we are going to cover off first is that reptiles are seasonal. So reptiles normally breed at a certain time of the year, lay eggs at a certain time of the year, and babies are normally regularly available from a certain time period. So here in Australia, for example, most of our reptiles go into a thing called brumation during the winter period. So brumation isn't exactly the same as hibernation in the case of a bear, where it might sleep the whole entire winter and does nothing. Reptiles tend to slow down, may not eat as much or be as active compared to the summertime, but once spring and summer hits, they'll be a little bit more lively. So most species of reptiles will often breed either late winter into spring, in some cases into summer, while with females, once they've been mated with and start ovulating eggs, depending on the species and family of reptile, they can lay eggs anywhere between late spring to maybe even early autumn the following year. I know with some cases with goannas, they have a long gestation or incubation period as well. So reptiles here in Australia are normally regularly available around February, March every year. Once we get to about June, July, it's basically what is left around, that's it, until the following season kicks in. I know with the Northern Hemisphere, of course, your guys' seasons are different. So basically, same period again, during winter, chances are finding what you're after may be harder compared to, let's say, late summer or early autumn where most babies are available. Some people don't even know there's actually laws and regulations on what reptiles we're allowed to keep. So a prime example here in Australia, I do get asked quite regularly, hey Luke, where can I get a leopard gecko, a corn snake, a ball python, X, Y, and Z? Here in Australia, we're not allowed to keep native reptiles. So what is found in Australia, we are allowed to keep by law. Yes, depending on what state and territory that you may live in, some species you may not allowed to keep. So I know in Northern Territory you can own a crocodile, for example, but here in New South Wales you need a special permit to have one. As well, different states and territories have different classes on how they structure their reptiles. So let's say here with Ray, he could be a Class 2 monitor in New South Wales, but he might be a Class 1 monitor in South Australia. So always check your local wildlife parks to make sure what license you may need to own a reptile, if you need to own a license you get, for a species, as well what class they may need. I know in America, for example, as well, you guys cannot own reticulated pythons, Burmese, green iguanas. I think there's a few other species of iguanas as well, due to the what's happening over in Florida. So just check with your national parks and make sure there is a licensing requirement in your area you live in. Once you have figured out what species of reptile you're allowed to own and keep and what you want to keep and know what license requirement you may need to get that species, next step will be doing some research. Now when you're doing research, make sure you read multiple articles and make sure what information that you're reading is common throughout. If you know if everyone's saying the same thing, you know the facts are true. If one person says one thing but another person says that thing, take that with a grain of salt, and sometimes misinformation can be quite common. As well as some people out there say the incorrect information on purpose to get you to kill your animal on purpose. If you're one of those type of people that do it, don't do it. It's not so fun. It's not nice. How would you like it if I were to tell you something and it wasn't correct? So do the right thing by the animals, please, guys. I usually refer to them as trolls. Other than that, when you are looking at buying a reptile, make sure you're buying it from a reliable source, as well from a respected breeder. As you know, they're not going to accuse or say the wrong thing on purpose. For me, I find if someone's breeding that animal for many, many years, they know how to care for them, they know the ins and outs of that species, and basically what the animal needs for it to have a happy and long life, pretty much. Once you go to someone who's new to the hobby, is probably the first time breeding them, take everything with a grain of salt, because sometimes people get lucky. Apologies everyone, I had to put Ray back as he's starting to get a bit unsettled, starting to get a little bit stressed out. So the best interest of his mental health, I'll pop him back in his cage where he can calm down and we can carry on for the rest of the video. So once you've worked out what animal you like to keep, you got the proper licensing to own that reptile, done a bit of research and you found a breeder who specialises or does that species of reptile, next few things to kind of intertwine with each other. So commitment, budget, and make sure you're having the best interest of the animal in your mind. So when you're looking at owning a reptile, make sure you've got a budget there to play with, because it is quite easy to overspend and you being out of pocket. And last thing you want to do is not get all the resources that the animal needs and it suffers. Like any pet, it is going to be a commitment. And don't get me wrong, a lot of pet owners out there are quite responsible. They do everything they can to make sure their pet is happy and healthy and is getting what they needed. However, some people don't realise that and become selfish and start neglecting the animal. Unfortunately as well, when people do get a pet, they're trying to cut corners to save money. They want a pet, but they don't fork out the money to look after it. And normally the animal is usually the one who suffers the most. So make sure you've got a respectable budget there to play around with so you can own that reptile correctly. As well, you got full-time commitment. So like anything else, having a child, having a pet, any other pet really. So it just annoys me where people are not going to be fully committed straight up. Yes, I know life happens where something can happen and you have to kind of give up your beloved pet. But at least you're doing the right thing of trying to find a new home for it where it can be loved just as much as you did. So of course, reptiles being cold-blooded, they need to be set up correctly. So without the right gear, they're not going to survive. It'd be like us. If I were to leave Earth to go to another planet and my life support system fails, I'm screwed. So it's all about having that proper setup, giving the animal the proper needs to make sure it has a long, healthy and happy life. The last little dot point we'll cover off is making sure having a veterinarian nearby who will help you when things go wrong. Now, unfortunately, in the veterinary fields, reptiles is a very specialised area. Not all vets do reptiles, so you might need to find someone who does specialise in that. It can be quite hard depending where you're from. Luckily, where I live, I have about 3 or 4 veterinarians who do specialise in reptiles. So when things do go wrong, which is quite rare, because I have all my reptiles properly set up and I'm watching them like a hawk constantly. And most of the time, it's just little things that I can fix on my own. But when it's something major, like a major illness, or they're injured, I rush them straight to that person for medical assistance. So always having a veterinarian in your back pocket to call up on when things go horribly wrong is a good idea. Like I said, with reptiles, as long as you got them set up properly, you look after them properly, if rarely they need the vets. I have 50 reptiles in my care the last 15 years. I've only had to take 5 to the vets, which I feel quite lucky in a way, because it could have got wrong anytime. So just a little bit of advice, make sure you have someone there you can go to where things go horribly wrong. Apart from that, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments down below. I'll try my best to answer them. Let me know where you're from as well, guys. I'm curious what part of the world you guys are watching my videos. Kind of helps when I do research who I should include when I make the videos. But apart from that, guys, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.